As y'all have heard me say before, the most important part of planning any adventure are the snacks. And if you're looking for a delicious and nutritious snack that packs a real protein punch, crack into a good source of protein with tasty, healthy, Wonderful Pistachios. Each 1 ounce serving of Wonderful Pistachios contains 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value in that one serving. It's one of the highest protein nuts out there. And that's not all. Pistachios are also known for the fiber and better for you unsaturated fats, which may help keep you feeling fuller longer. Best part, Wonderful Pistachios come in a variety of flavors and sizes. Perfect for enjoying with your family and friends or taking them with you on your summer adventures for those snacks we're talking about. So whether you're dropping off the kiddos or running between meetings or about to climb a mountain, fuel up with a healthy and tasty snack. Wonderful Pistachios will be your new go-to. You can check them out at wonderfulpistachios.com and learn more about how these little green wonders can power up your day. Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mason. Today's episode, we're talking to Seth Quigg. Seth has been on the show before, talking about adventures in Tanzania. But today, we're talking about what he does for work, which is take people on adventures all over the world and tries to instill in them a sense of philanthropy and a sense of, what kind of difference can you make? And his newest project, he is not only taking people to a location to experience it, but the people in the location are also coming home to the homes of the people who go on the trip in the first place. So, say a group out of Colorado goes to Nepal. Well, to visit a group in Nepal, well, that group in Nepal, school kids or some sort of community goes and visits the original community in Colorado. So they swap cultures, and it's this really cool, immersive idea that he's launching into. But it's from this career in understanding how adventure and travel can affect the world and how it can have a positive effect on the world and not just take, and, pop in and out of an area and then leave. But how do you become part of a place and, it be a reciprocal relationship? So we're going to talk about that and talk about how you can make your own adventures more impactful for the world. Because that's one thing I've learned is that a lot of times these big adventures that you do, if you post about them or talk about them, they're going to garner a lot of attention. And I've always wanted to direct that attention to something bigger than myself, some sort of cause, some sort of mission. And although I haven't done a big adventure in a while, that was my cup of tea. And I raised money, and I really loved combining adventure and making the world a better place. It was, I think it's one of the, it's like peanut butter and chocolate. It just goes together so well. Anyway, so today we're going to be talking to Seth about this idea. And speaking of travel, if you want to go on a trip with me next year, I'm thinking about putting together a plan to go to Yosemite National Park and go backpacking. The exact timing, the exact location, and the exact date and distance and all that, to be determined. But if you're interested, put your name. There's a survey link in the show notes. Fill it out. Let us know you're interested. Let us know your budget. Let us know when works for you. Let us know exactly where works for you. I would love to take a group to either Yosemite or Alaska or somewhere that we can really get into some incredible, impactful wilderness that also has some historical value. But if that is at all interesting to you, fill out the survey in the show notes. I want to gauge from listeners how many people are interested and if we could pull this off. And if enough people are interested, we're going to make it happen. And we're going to implement a lot of the lessons and philosophies that Seth is sharing today. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. Seth Quigg, you were on, first of all, welcome to Adventure Sports Podcast. We're going to go ahead and start rolling here. You were on back in episode 360. We're almost at episode 1000. So that was 5 years ago. That was probably 6 to 8 months before I came to join the experience. But from a high level, and in that episode, you were talking about wildland trekking in Tanzania. At a high level, what has changed in your life since then? What are some of those big sweeping changes, those highlights?
Great. Thanks for having me, Mason. Yeah, a lot has changed since then. I ended up selling my shares of Wildland Trekking 2 weeks before COVID hit, which was very serendipitous for an international adventure travel company. So got out with just in the nick of time, and then COVID hit. I had worked in the construction industry in Crested Butte. That was the only thing that was really going on, but did that to sustain myself. And went back to teaching outdoor ed for a bit up in Alaska and down in Mexico, which was phenomenal to just kind of see how things were going in the industry with tourism and travel and education, and jumped on a new project with an amazing organization called Empowered, and I'm running the impact part of their organization. And so really diving into the humanitarian sector and exploring what that looks like post-COVID, and to see what exactly the world is doing to help people on the planet. I've also launched a new company, which we'll talk about, that combines the humanitarian sector and leverages travel and tourism to really make an impact for those in the places where we'll travel.
Tell us more about that, your philosophy around that, around adventure in philanthropy. What kind of got you started in this world? And I know some of this is going to be overlap for when you talked last time, but even for folks that might have heard that episode back in 2018, I'm sure they forgot a lot of the details. So it's probably good to revisit. Well, what was your introduction into adventure, combining that with philanthropy?
Yeah, so I used to work for a company out of the UK called World Challenge Expeditions, and we would take high school students to different countries around the world on these month-long expeditions. And part of that curriculum was that we would go into a community and do a, quote, service project alongside the community. And so what that did was fostered a positive immersion experience for all involved, for the local people, for the students, for everybody that we touched. And so with my past company, we didn't have anything like that. So I was looking for a way to make a larger impact. And so the summer of 2019, I met the founder and CEO of Empowered, the solar light company, and we ended up co-branding a couple expeditions and called them Light the Path expeditions, where we would incorporate solar light into these trips, into these commercially guided trekking and climbing trips. And we raised, $20,000. We put a solar panel on a Maasai school and deployed over 1,000 of Empowered Lucy lights to all the students of the school. And just to note, it's hard for Westerners to conceptualize what it's like to live in darkness, and so the majority of the world doesn't have access to clean energy. And so providing the folks on the ground where we were operating with solar is a huge increase in the quality of life for people. And so, ultimately, I started traveling around the world, chasing, running the biggest rivers and climbing big mountains. And ultimately it dawned on me that it's all about the people. And there are a lot of people out there suffering and don't have access to the amenities that we have in the Western world. And so doing something to bolster that is important to my personal and professional ethos. And so that's kind of how it started,
Adventure often does spur new ideas, seeing these new perspectives, seeing these new places. And you might come across somebody who's already doing that farther down that road. And you might either join them in that effort or, think up your own idea, like Empowered or something like that. Was there anybody you got a lot of inspiration from and you saw making a difference with adventure?
Not so much when it comes to the commercial guiding world. A lot of companies will just are in and out. They're like clients in, clients out. Here's the trip, but what I value the most out of adventure travel, especially internationally, is that cultural exchange. And so through building relationships and rapport with people in different countries all over the world, you start to understand what their needs are, and life is different abroad, but it doesn't mean it's worse or better. And so regarding inspiration, I mean, yeah, the first came from World Challenge, and I love that program, and seeing the outcomes that it had on the local people. There was it's cross-cultural learning at its best. And so that's the main inspiration, is the people that I know and that I work with all over the world, and to really like make an impact on their lives and the people that they work with lives, the local folks, and really trying to better humanity through travel.
When you take people on expeditions around the world, what are you trying to instill in them, like intentionally? Because like you said, a lot of travel guys will just be in and out. Hey, take some pictures, look at these cool things and this culture, and you're out. What are you trying to do differently? What are you trying to instill in people?
Yeah, so the new project, what we're focusing on is sustainable and reciprocal relationships. And so I've been supporting this school outside of Kathmandu in Nepal since 2010. And we'll eventually, we will this November take guests and students to the village, and we'll provide a cultural immersion experience before an adventure. So we're trekking in the Khumbu and Everest region, but we want to start building sustainable relationships. And so taking our students from the valley I live in Colorado, to Kakani in Nepal, but then also bringing the students from Nepal to Colorado, to the USA. And for any rural Nepali kid or person to have the opportunity to come to the USA has the potential to be a huge game changer in the trajectory of their life, like a very pivotal point. But we're all about, in the tagline being, we have a lot to learn from each other. A lot of our students, they have the nicest skis and the nicest new bikes and drive nice cars, but a lot are, in therapy. And our students in Nepal, they don't have much monetary asset at all, but they have culture, they have community, they have spirituality, they have happiness. And so bridging the gap between cultures is the ultimate goal.
I can imagine the kids from Nepal coming to Colorado and saying, wow, these are, the cutest little mountains I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, in my town, we have a pretty large Nepali population, and, it's very similar. We have a unique culture too that is pretty spiritual, and, the mountains make the rules, and so there are similarities as well as differences, but yeah, it's a completely new way to think.
So what kind of people, is this surprising, the focus of your expeditions, or do y'all do a pretty good job of setting expectations ahead of time so that folks aren't, not anticipating those cultural and immersion aspects of the trip?
Yeah, I mean, adventure is all about expectations, right? And setting those expectations. But, in terms of the relationship and the immersion piece, like I think it's an ongoing, as the world turns, it's an ongoing study and thought process, right? Because, typically in the past, travelers would want to go and bring pencils and bring stuff and bring things. And what that does is it habituates communities for tourists. I'm sure as listeners, if you've traveled to East Africa or Asia or South America, you'll see little kids running up saying, chocolate, sweet, and they expect that from tourists. And that theory has been debunked. Like, we're not doing that. And so we're still studying, like, reading a lot about toxic charity and what that means and how the world shows up for each other. But it's a very specific niche, and it needs to come from the local community. Like we're not running in trying to put a round peg in a square hole. Like it has to be something that the community wants and needs, and it's carried out responsibly.
So you've been in the outdoor education space, international adventure travel space for like over 20 years now, which is crazy. I'm sure that's crazy to think about too. Maybe it's felt like longer. What are some of those major changes you've seen over those 20 years, or kind of what do you see that's becoming maybe more in vogue or less popular? Is it, the expectations from locals, expecting things from travelers? Like what are some of those major changes you're seeing and trying to help facilitate?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that you could draw a line when COVID hit. There's like a pre-adventure travel versus post-adventure travel from COVID, and so what we're seeing now is a lot of adventure travel companies are like going carbon neutral or net zero, and while that's all good in theory, I'm not exactly sure the impact that it will have. It's, some companies are greenwashing, if you're familiar with that term. And, because it's the standard, everybody's having the stamp on their website that says, oh, we're sustainable and we do this and we do this.
Without a real consideration of what that means or really following through with those. They're just, kind of saying it.
Exactly. Exactly. Like it's a trend, it's a theme. Like, oh, this company's doing it. We got to be, you know, we have to be in line with that. And plus our customers are going to want that. They're going to want, to know that we're helping in some way. And so through our reciprocal relationships, we just think it's a better way to leverage tourism, to help humans and to help the planet through cultural understanding.
What are some stories of maybe some guests you've taken on your adventures that you've seen real impact happen? Maybe a moment, something clicking for them, whether it be like, hey, I thought this trip was about me, or me being able to help others, or just selfishly the trip was about me and my experiences, and they leave with a totally different perspective or with this whole new understanding, and you see them almost having reached some sort of level of enlightenment and their life has changed.
Yeah, that's great. I think that the best way we can facilitate that is through cultural exchange. Um, the mountains and the natural world offers that through physical challenge, and people can grow and learn a lot through just the aspects of challenging themselves and hiking. But I feel like the real sustenance is when guests have a cultural experience with someone that they meet in country or with a group of people, like a group of porters that they get to know. And, we can have this authentic experience where we're going to meet their families and having a real understanding of who these people are. And so the successes are those relationships carrying through. And so post trip, when customers or clients, students reach back out to those communities and they continue their relationship, is a huge success. And I would say the majority of my guests have those relationships moving forward. As globalization of the world comes into place, we've got social media and everybody can keep in touch that way. And so it really makes me happy to see past guests, still talking to people that they met, in Tanzania or Nepal or different countries around the world. And then even like getting involved in that reciprocal part of it and saying, cool, we'd love for you to come over to the USA, or how can we still support you? How can we create this mutually beneficial and symbiotic relationship as humans to learn from each other? And so I think the cultural immersion piece to me is imperative, and it really creates success.
What are some of your favorite places to take folks? It sounds like a lot of your trips focus on the Himalayas, and will that continue to be the case with as you build relationships with certain places, you want to keep building them and you kind of get even more ingrained in those places. So will you see yourself leading more and more trips to the same places, and where would that be?
Yeah, yep. So, having worked in the industry for 20 years internationally, like I have friends and family all over the world. And so the first place, so the new company is called the Karuna Project, Karuna, and that's the Sanskrit word for compassion. And our first trip is in Nepal, and we have 15 guests going this November, where we'll work at a school and have this experience, and then go trekking in the Everest region. So Nepal is where we're focusing first and foremost. We will likely expand to East Africa and Tanzania next year, and into Peru, just because, those three places are dear to my heart, and I have great connections there. And there's ample opportunity to create a positive impact on the ground, as well as they're all great for adventure. You've got the Himalaya, you've got Kilimanjaro, you've got a Sacred Valley and the Inca Trail, and the magic that lies in the Peruvian Andes. So those will be the first three destinations we're focusing on. But then I've worked all over the world. I've worked in Madagascar and on the island of Borneo and Iceland. And so we will most likely start getting more off the beaten path into places that aren't as developed for tourism, for more an exploratory adventure. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, would love to open up trips in Madagascar and Borneo, potentially Papua New Guinea. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. The world is our oyster.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. Are you a busy person with lots of passions and lots of responsibilities and very little time like me? Well, you might be a fan of Green Chef. Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating clean, dinners that work for you. They deliver everything you need to eat great the easy way this October. Feel your best with nutrition-approved recipes delivered right to your door. Easy to prep meals, all the ingredients you need, and pretty good-sized portions too. I'm a big guy. I'm like 6'4", 220 on a good day. And, I'm always worried, oh man, is this going to be enough food for me? Because I can put it down. Well, Green Chef, man, I believe it or not, my family of 4 had leftovers afterwards. Now, granted, the kids are small, but I more than make up for what they don't eat. And we had leftovers. It felt good. I didn't feel sluggish. I didn't feel like I put too much butter or salt or anything on it. It was clean eating. Especially this time of year, things get crazy. Maybe the weather's turning in your area. And it's just tough. It's just tough to grocery shop. Man, that's one of my least favorite things to do. I'm thankful we can grocery shop, but Green Chef made it easy. Delivered it right to my door to make a home-cooked, nutritious meal for my family. So if you want to give Green Chef a shot, go to greenchef.com/60ASP and use the code 60ASP to get 60% off plus free shipping. That's an insane deal. 60% off. Again, that's greenchef.com/ASP60 and use the code ASP60 for 60% off and free shipping. The link's in the show notes. Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well. This episode is brought to us by Oris Watches. You know what piece of equipment on any adventure that I'm honestly surprised by how much I use is my watch. And I'm wearing a watch right now. I always have a watch on. And I believe that you should check out Oris Watches. Oris is a 119-year-old family-owned independent watch brand based out of Hallstein, Switzerland. The brand has been certified climate and carbon neutral since 2021 and every year releases a sustainability report. Oris only makes mechanical watches like the new Pro Pilot X Caliber 400 and the new Pro Pilot Altimeter featuring a 3D printed carbon case. If you're a fan of mechanical watches like I am, there's nothing in the game that's better than Oris, and you can discover the full Oris collection at a retailer near you or at oris.ch. So if you want that one piece of equipment in your life to be functional, to be useful, to be beautiful, artistic, check out Oris Watches. Oris, go your own way. I cannot tell you how excited I am about this partnership. Today's episode is brought to us by Yosemite National Park. If you know me at all, you know that Yosemite is my absolute favorite place in the whole entire world. I've been all over the world. I've seen almost every national park. Yosemite is special. It just has this aura about it, this just air that is magical and important. You can tell, I mean, it's one of the first protected pieces of land ever in the world. It's amazing. It is a window to heaven. And what makes it so great is the hundreds of miles of some of the best hiking trails in the world. Leisurely walks down in the valley. I'm talking like flat walks all the way to the adventurous treks with thousands of feet of elevation gain that have the most breathtaking scenes you could ever imagine. Iconic sites like Half Dome, El Capitan, the Mariposa Grove of giant sequoias. It will leave you awestruck. And with the fall coming, that means warm days and cool nights. There's also outside of the park the historic gold rush town of Mariposa. Boasts one of the best small town culture scenes in the U.S. Nearby Coulterville, named the friendliest town in America by Reader's Digest. And all throughout Mariposa County, you'll find a variety of options for lodging and recreation, rustic cabins to four-diamond resorts, and everything in between. Great dining options, museums galore, including the Yosemite Climbing Museum, which we've had people on this show from there, and even live music festivals. And if you're like me, you're into history and the history of the national parks, well, that's where it all got started. There is no place on earth like Yosemite. And in fact, beyond this partnership, I hope one day that we can take listeners of this show to Yosemite every year for a yearly retreat. So if you haven't already, plan your trip to Yosemite, plan your trip to Mariposa County, and go be mesmerized and awestruck just like I am every time I go. This episode is brought to us by Oris Watches. You know what piece of equipment on any adventure that I'm honestly surprised by how much I use is my watch. And I'm wearing a watch right now. I always have a watch on. And I believe that you should check out Oris Watches. Oris is a 119-year-old family-owned independent watch brand based out of Hallstein, Switzerland. The brand has been certified climate and carbon neutral since 2021, and every year releases a sustainability report. Oris only makes mechanical watches like the new Pro Pilot X Caliber 400 and the new Pro Pilot Altimeter featuring a 3D printed carbon case. If you're a fan of mechanical watches like I am, there's nothing in the game that's better than Oris, and you can discover the full Oris collection at a retailer near you or at oris.ch. So if you want that one piece of equipment in your life to be functional, to be useful, to be beautiful, artistic, check out Oris Watches. Oris, go your own way. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode. You know, do you like to solo travel still? And if so, how do you think, because you're a guide, how do you think that changes the way you view travel, you know, solo adventures and solo travel experiences?
Yeah, Mason, I love solo travel. I haven't left North America since COVID hit. But before COVID hit, I was, on the road all the time. I think in 2019 I was in like 15 different countries leading expeditions, and for the better part of 12 years I was only leading expeditions. And I didn't live anywhere. I didn't pay rent. I had a truck in Idaho. I had a kayak and some stuff.
Dang. How did that treat you? How did you deal with COVID? Like, what was that like from your perspective? Because I mean, it's insane for all of us, but for you, even more so.
Yeah, it was incredible. I think I'm so thankful. I mean, that's a little weird to say, but it was ultimate. It's like a reset of my life. Like, all right, let's stop and reflect on the last 15 years. Started writing. I got a dog. Bought a condo. It really hunkered me down, and to work locally and just completely change it up was extremely valuable.
Was that difficult to do for you, or did it come pretty naturally?
No, it came naturally. It came pretty naturally. I love my community where I live in Colorado. It's a fantastic group of humans, and we're surrounded by wilderness on 3 sides of the town. And so we, we just spent a lot of time in the mountains doing what we've always done. But yeah, really slowing down and kind of reflecting on, my past and the world. And, luckily we're still able to keep in touch with people around the world and talk about experiences that they're having. Actually, I was teaching it at Western Colorado University, and it was a travel and tourism class that I was teaching, and we had all of my business partners from all around the world share their experience. Here's what's going on in Cusco. Here's what's going on in Kathmandu. Here's what's happening in Sweden. So I think that was memorable for the students. But yeah, I think, overall it was great. In hindsight, I got out of my business. I could have some clarity to focus on myself and the world and see, what's going on. But for professionally, it was an amazing time just to have a blank slate and be like, all right, what are we doing next? But I've always, I have tons of community in the international adventure world. And so talking to different people and understanding challenges and what's going on, how are you rebounding, has been phenomenal to know when the right time to get back into the industry is. And that time is now.
We had a guest, Gary Arndt. He's a well-known traveler, writer, and photographer, and traveled nonstop since 2007. And COVID happened, and he started a podcast, which is really blown up. And I'm just like, how do you just? It has to be so difficult. But it sounds like maybe just the skills of adventure teaches you to deal with the unexpected and to be resourceful. And it's almost like that sets you up to be successful during COVID more than it hindered you from not being able to travel or do the things you were used to.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Yeah, being tolerant, I think tolerance for adversity and uncertainty of we don't know what's going to happen, but let's have gratitude for what we do have, and I'm privileged and lucky to have, shelter, food, friends, love, water, so having that gratitude for the little things that we do have is also, I've learned that through adventure and travel. We're only appreciative for what we have. And so having gratitude is equally as important.
What's one of the coolest adventure experiences? I know it wouldn't be international because you haven't gone outside the U.S. since COVID, but since COVID, what's one of the most impactful adventures you've had?
Yeah, well, I should clarify. I haven't left North America. So I have me and my partner. She's an avid sailor, and she's crossed the Pacific. She did a Pacific journey. So we bought a sailboat, and we're both able to work virtually. And so our sailboat's down in the Sea of Cortez in Mexico, and I'm a novice sailor. I've spent a lot of time on the ocean, but not in sailing, more sea kayaking and in other ways. And so that's been an incredible adventure and challenge. One of my mentors told me, he's like, man, take everything you know about rivers and climbing and hiking and then add 70% in that sailing. So yeah, we bought a sailboat down there a couple of years ago. And I think sailing is, to me, it's all about it's the ultimate vessel for resiliency and resourcefulness, learning fiberglass and learning electricity and diesel engines, and on top of the weather and the technical aspect of sailing. I mean, it's a full-on challenging adventure. I highly recommend it for anybody that might be complacent where they're at in the mountains or wherever they're at. If you want a real challenge, you should go try your hand at sailing.
We've had a number of sailors on the show, and it seems like I actually have lessons to go sail. My wife got it for me for Christmas, and I still haven't been able to. Actually, no, we got it scheduled for a month from now, so I should be getting into it because we live near the ocean. I've never done it, and I've never sailed. But man, all the sailors we talk to on this show, it just seems like endless work. And then some. You never catch up.
It is endless work. My partner, she says, like, sailing is like being in jail, but you can drown. But yeah, I mean, it's an ultimate test. I went into sailing thinking like, cool, I'll be able to adapt well and have my hand at the adversity that comes with it. And I was extremely challenged. And so yeah, sailing is becoming a new, and it's just like a great way to travel and explore, and you have to fix everything. You have to be self-reliant. And however, with that being said, the sailing community is absolutely phenomenal. Like, so many people are willing to help you learn, mentor you, um, offer their assistance, and it's so cool. Like, people from all over the world. Some people have, like, don't leave the Sea of Cortez, and then you got other people that have circumnavigated like 4 times that are just stopping through, and you're like, wow, this is just an incredible group of humans, with a niche vision for how to live life.
It is probably just a world you step into. I drive by marinas all day, and whenever you get on the docks, you get a little glimpse of it. Just whole separate culture. It's so cool, man. So cool. And that goes for any sport, any subculture, anything anybody's into. There's so much to know once you peek your head inside. It's can be overwhelming.
Absolutely. We'd like to, as our competency builds, or as my competency builds, would love to offer sailing expeditions as well that, combine philanthropy with the adventure piece of it.
What are some tricks, and not tricks, I guess, what are some ways that the average adventurer, someone listening to this show, maybe can get out a few times a year? Maybe it's local, right in their hometown. Maybe it's, halfway around the world. What are some ways they can be more intentional about I don't want to say maybe philanthropy, but how can they make their adventures more impactful for more than just them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think adventure is a mindset. And so anybody can have an adventure with whatever they do. It's all about changing your environment and expanding your horizons. And so I would urge folks to go to a different part of their community that they don't normally go to, and maybe volunteer with a different with an organization they don't know. And through that, they might meet people that might help their mind expand and to grow into that. So it's not your typical like outdoor adventure, like I'm going to go hiking, I'm going to go climbing, but more of like on a internal level of like, yeah, well, I'm going to go volunteer at the homeless shelter or the soup kitchen, and like see what that brings up inside of that person. Because that in itself is an adventure. You're changing your environment, you're around different humans you wouldn't normally be with. You're doing something good for folks. And so that is the impetus, I think, of adventure travel.
We do a lot of interviews on this show, and I see this format a lot. I've used this format a lot of raising money for different causes through an adventure, whether it's a big, physical challenge or just some long trek or something. You bring awareness to an idea or a topic. Is that also something you encourage, or is how effective is that, and how can you take that a step further? It sounds like there are ways to do that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's an amazing thing to do. I think it's subjective to the organization that's facilitating the experience. And, just I would urge all participants in those kind of fundraisers to really dive deep and understand where that funding is going and how it's touching the people that you're expecting it to touch. I think, through a lot of those fundraisers and whatnot, money and funds can get lost in translation somewhere through the mix. So if the project is specific on where the monies and funds are going, how much of the funds are going there, I think that's due diligence on client participants' parts. But I think I think they're fantastic.
So what are you dude, I didn't even ask you this. This is usually the first question I ask is where are you coming from and where's home for you? So I think if folks have been listening, it's home for you is Crested Butte, but where are you coming from right now and why are you there? Because you're getting ready to go do something that's pretty cool.
Right. Yep. So I'm currently in North Carolina. I was raised outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. But I am headed to Geneva, Switzerland. I have a couple meetings at the United Nations. So working in the humanitarian sector now with Empowered and the solar company. Our goal is to get lights around the world to people that lack access to clean energy. And so I'm on the way to Geneva to meet with the UN and to attend the ADEX trade show, which is the largest humanitarian trade show on the planet. And so you'll have, multiple United Nations organizations there, HCR, IOM, but then a lot of the large nonprofits will be there as well, such as Doctors Without Borders, Save the Children, etc. And so I have that conference all next week, and then we'll stay in Europe for 3 weeks working virtually, and then fly to Nepal from Paris on the 19th of November, and then we meet our clients on the 25th of November, and we'll be in Nepal until the 15th of December. And then we have to go down to the Indian beaches for a rest and relaxation for 5 days afterwards. So
Of course.
yeah, of course. You got the no-brainer. You got to do that. And then, be back in North Carolina for the holidays with my family here. And then back to Crested Butte January 1st.
Dude, that is awesome. So from, mid to late November to mid-December, what will you be doing during that time in Nepal? What should people expect? Because that's a decent amount of time. I mean, there's gonna be adventures, there's gonna be philanthropy aspects. Tell us what folks are gonna be expecting.
Yeah, so we arrive on the 19th, and we will be going to the school outside of Kathmandu and doing a pretty thorough needs assessment. So getting to know the elders and the village leaders there, and really doing a needs assessment on how we can create this relationship. We have talked to them in the past of this year, but it's more of a formal meeting. So we'll do that for 3 or 4 days. And then the clients arrive on the 24th. And so we'll pick them up. We have our orientation meeting and welcome dinner that night. And then the next day we'll take all the clients to the village and school and introduce them to the people there. We've also have a 100 solar lights. So part of this endeavor is providing solar. The village doesn't have any electricity. And so, but doing that responsibly and properly is one of our goals, right? We're not just going to go in and give people stuff that we don't know. And again, I've been supporting this school since 2010, but it's post-COVID. I haven't been back since 2019. So it's kind of like, a little bit of a reunion with old friends and seeing how kids have grown up and things like that. But we'll take our guests there, and then we fly to Everest region, and we'll be trekking for 15 days over 3 high passes adjacent to Everest.
What a cool mix. Do you feel like your style is unique, or is it growing in popularity, or is this, an adventure travel style that's popular?
Well, it's unique in the aspect that we're dedicated to bringing the students from Nepal to the USA.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's the unique piece about the Karuna project, and something we're pretty excited about. And I'm also a member of the Rotary International, and so we'll facilitate that exchange through Rotary. But again, man, having the opportunity for a rural Nepali kid to come to USA is game changing. And so we want to create this symbiotic relationship where we send our people over and then we bring their people over and create this learning kind of sustainable community relationship. And I don't think any companies are doing that I know of. we're dedicated to it. Like it's a way to make impact for local people. And yeah, we were going to do it in Tanzania. We've already got a partner there on the ground, working with a school. And so it'll be education focused, but bringing kids from Tanzania, from Peru. Yeah, we've got a lot to learn from each other, from different places around the world. And it really just, it creates empathy for each other and compassion and understanding and opportunities. Like one thing is like, I've led thousands of groups around the world and people around the world, but those local kids never have the opportunity to go and travel or experience adventure like we do. And so, yeah, man, providing the opportunity for the local kids is the goal.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible.
The best travel gear isn't born in a factory. It's inspired by journeys taken by real people exploring the world. That's why I love Roark. Their team pulls designs and inspiration straight from the places they travel and have adventures. And for over 10 years, they've been exploring the globe to seek adventures on the road less traveled. Everything from surfing waves on remote island chains to exploring the streets of Jakarta, the Scottish Highlands, and almost everything in between. Roark has developed options for you. I'm actually wearing the Roark Bless Up breathable stretch shirt right now, and I was wearing a Roark shirt yesterday. I'm traveling right now, and you could probably hear the echo in the room, but I was at this event. This guy was speaking, and he looked down at me and pointed at me right in the middle of his talk and said, "Nice shirt." And I was like, "Thank you very much." It was a Roark shirt, and I've got my Accomplice Mule 45-liter bag. I love it because it can hold all my podcast gear, take it on the plane, but also holds extra stuff. I can put some clothes in there too. And if I didn't have my podcast gear, it could probably hold everything I needed for this trip. And it's water resistant. I love that. So Roark offers durable, comfortable styles inspired by the places they've been. And they've got their latest collection, the Hokkaido, featuring Japanese prints and patterns and Japanese manufactured Kaihara premium denim. So if you're traveling, Roark has the gear options. And for a limited time, if you're a listener of the show, you can get 15% off your first order. Go to Roark.com. Use the code ASP15 at checkout. That's ROARK.com and use the code ASP15 for 15% off your first order.
That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode. What an amazing experience. I'm excited to hear how that goes and to see this format hopefully gain more popularity where it's not, let's just go experience, but let's share our culture as well and build relationships and help realize the world is not big scary place, but we're all a part of this together. We're all in the same boat in a lot of ways. So really cool, Seth. I'm super excited about this. Tell us a little bit about what you hope to get done over in Switzerland. What do you have planned? What is this humanitarian conference and trade show going to be about? And what kind of impact you're hoping to have there?
Yeah, so it's just a lot of sharing ideas. There are, it's interesting timing as this war has broken out in Israel and Gaza. So I expect that to be a topic, a pretty prominent topic, and how the United Nations and how other organizations are supporting the disaster that's going on. And so I think there'll be a lot of talk about that. But then, I hope to learn just more about the humanitarian sector and like how this sector is showing up for people, and what are some challenges that are happening, and what are some successes. And I think because of post-COVID, we gotta relearn systems, or unlearn and then relearn new ways of thinking. And it's a massive system, but I hope to bring some tourism into it and see, to gauge on what that looks like. And yeah, we've got some interesting ideas and thoughts, but then also to build partnerships between empowered and organizations to get our lights out to folks. And so it's a big networking opportunity to get to know folks and to say, hey, we've got this, impact program going on. How can we work together to lighten up some lives? Literally,
baby. I love that. That's awesome. So what being an educator and teaching young folks about this kind of philosophy and travel, adventure, philanthropy, and just seeing the world in a certain way and having this mindset. Any resources you can share with folks to kind of go further down this road? Because we are constantly trying to feature people on this show that are not only just doing really cool things, but like you're doing that in a way to help the world be better or help their community. Not just like, hey, this is really badass, but this is making the world a better place. Any resources you recommend? Books, websites, people to follow? You, of course, but anyone else?
Yeah, I think, as a younger human in your 20s and 30s, like the adventure usually, and this is from a Western standpoint, but it usually like is focused on you or a lot of people that are homogenous with your culture. Like, "Yeah, we're going to go on a river trip with all the people from my town and everybody looks the same." But I would urge folks to really get out of their comfort zone when it comes to humanity and thinking about different types of people. And because it's not all about ourselves, it's about everyone. And that shared experience is some of the most valuable things I reflect back on. Is like, man, like we climbed this huge mountain in Nepal. What made it successful? Competency, sure, but we're nothing without each other. There's a Ngosa saying in South Africa, a word called Ubuntu, which means we're nothing without each other. It's all about the community. And so I think when you get to a certain point, understanding why people go on international expeditions and really reflecting on that. I mean, exploring, adventure is all about exploring. You're exploring yourself. You're exploring yourself in a certain place. You're exploring other people. You're exploring your relationships with people. And so having that interpersonal dialogue of like, what is the outcome we're seeking, And some people are more task oriented of like, cool, we have to get to the summit to then ski off. Like that's the goal. But I would challenge those folks on saying, yeah, I mean, that's your goal, but how can you add some humanitarian value to that experience? So going back to your question, what resources are there? I would check out reliefweb.com. Like that's a huge international NGO platform where people could, maybe look for volunteer opportunities that way, start learning about what's going on the planet to incorporate that into your so-called adventure. I think it adds a layer of depth that only helps create more critically thinking minds.
We're the adventure sports podcast, but really it's kind of molded over the years into the adventure stories podcast. And that was what a lot of your first episode was about. Like, tell us stories about trekking across Tanzania. Tell us maybe an example that you've seen either with you or with others where, someone combines adventure with some sort of philanthropic work and makes a real difference. And it's maybe a combination you didn't, expect or something you didn't. I don't know. Take us how that format has actually had an impact in the world.
Yeah. Okay. So on this, as mentioned, I ran and created 2 Light the Path expeditions. And so we took 15 guests to Nepal. We worked at a school for 4 days and deployed over 300 of the solar lights. And then we took the guests on a 13-day trek. That was also in partnership with Backpacker magazine. My friend Dennis Lewin and I worked on that together. And then subsequently we raised $20,000, put a solar panel on a Maasai school in Tanzania, deployed over 900 of the Lucy lights, and then took the guests to climb Kilimanjaro. And so some of the guests that signed up for this trip were specifically into it for the philanthropic part. And so, a lot of guiding is about building relationships, building trust, building rapport, but, keeping in touch with some of the guests and seeing how they continue to want to support the people that they met, in the communities we met are sustainable, And so one of my guests on the Tanzania trip, he's coming with me to Nepal, and he's got a big heart and he wants to invest in this idea of cross-cultural learning and reciprocity. And so, I think like anything, if you put energy into it, you put it out there, you lead with love and role model that, there's no option but to succeed. So that's a real exciting part of the adventure and philanthropy. I don't have any like dashing or daring, thrilling stories when it comes to adventure and philanthropy. But it's more about just kind of how the subtle shift in some people's minds change to wanting to continue relationships and continue to know and be involved in people's lives of different cultures and on the planet.
It gives you a sense of the more I travel and the more I experience other cultures and just make, connections and relationships, it gives you a sense of being at home in the world. When I moved back to Florida with my family, there was a lot less pressure for things to go wrong because we have more of a support system. And, an example is like if I break down on the side of the road, which of the 6 people can I call now? You know what I mean? It's like I can call my dad, I can call my grandpa, I can call my cousin, my friend lives down there. You know what I mean? It's like, and you can make that, I don't know. I've felt that way across the world at times where I have enough people and enough relationships and enough community to feel like, okay, anywhere you go, there will be someone to help. And of course, strangers. So I think that's one of the great benefits of it is making the world your home.
Yeah, I completely agree. I could go to a lot of countries around this planet and have tons of people that, I trust and rely on, that I know well, and I know their families and kids. And some of those people have been to my home in the USA. A lot of them have actually. And yeah, I mean, I think, as a human, you have a choice. You can look at the world as a friendly and beautiful place, or you can look at it as a non-trusting and hostile place. And yeah, so going on adventures with an open mind and heart, and knowing that people will show up. I think that's something that travel has taught me, that you're never alone anywhere. Like somebody will always be your friend and support your mission and whatever you're there to do. And so that kind of grounding ethos is close to home for sure.
Even in times like this.
Even in times like this.
I tell people, I just, gosh, funny enough, today's episode, which is a revisited episode, is about a guy who paddled the Amazon and got shot in the back by a rowdy bunch. And so it's like a survival story. And I'm like, these are very rare for us, but it's an exciting and it's a crazy story. And there's a book. This is not how the world is for 99% of our adventurers.
Right. I've never been shot back.
No, I've been stabbed a few times, but no, I'm just kidding. But no, man, it's news because it's the exception to the rule. That's why it's on there. Yeah. Well, Seth, gosh, man, this was awesome. I wish you the best of luck. You've got a heck of a lot of travel coming up, a lot of logistics, a lot of people, and a lot of places and sites and cultures. We wish you, I know you've done this hundreds, if not thousands of times at this point, but I wish you luck on everything coming up. I hope you have an amazing impact, and I hope you continue to do the things you do to make this world an exciting, fun, and adventurous place.
Awesome, Mason. Thank you, my friend. And I appreciate you hosting and sharing our story, and look forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, we'll have you on in another 5 years. No, I'm just kidding. We'll do it sooner than that.
I'll hold you to that.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to growing the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.